All right, everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay. For anyone here in the Jacksonville market, feel free to reach out to me if you need help on anything, whether you're just getting started, stuck on a deal, or if you're looking for a buyer. We are actively looking to buy more properties here, so reach out to me. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll send you our buy box. Each Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we'll dive deep with guests from all over the country who are changing the game in real estate. Uh, Next week, I will be off because I was going for a wedding, because I'm going to a wedding. I know I said that last week, but I had the dates wrong. So this week we're here, next week we're off.
Someone's
And this is, what was that, Justin?
someone's keeping you on track.
Exactly. And this is a live show, so please comment with your questions for our guest to answer. And our guest for this week is Justin Tuminowski. He is an expert in creative finance who focuses on bankruptcy and pre-foreclosure properties up and down the East Coast. Justin was a full-time licensed electrician for 14 years before he started flipping houses on the side in 2013. And in 2020, he made the jump to being a full-time real estate investor. So, Justin, welcome to the show.
Mike, thank you so much for having me, brother. I'm so happy and I'm so proud of you doing this. I admire it. I love it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So to kick things off, back in 2013, how did you get started in real estate?
Ooh. So yeah, I mean, blue collar all the way through, right? So young age, swinging hammers with my grandfather. I owe everything to him. Just get me into the trades, right? So I'm around houses, I'm around real estate, we're around decorating. I'm raised by women, so they're decorating and right. So I'm just falling in love with real estate, but just on the back end, I want to swing a hammer. And I learned at a young age through my grandfather that he said, "Don't be a carpenter. Don't do it." And he worked hard for not a lot of things, right? So you start to become conscious of that. So I said, hey, I'm going to be a blue collar guy growing up. Let's go find the best trade that makes one of the most amount of money. That's really what I said.
Sure.
What's one of the
Yeah.
smarter guys? And so it was like plumber, electrician, or believe it or not, elevator guys, elevator operators. Yeah, they do pretty well. But I just like being in the trades, right? And it's clean work. It's not backbreaking to some degree. So yeah, morphed into right out of high school. Got a beautiful job, great job. I fought for, and I fought tooth and nail to get into one of the premier electrical outfits in the state of Massachusetts. Prevailing wage. So 18 years old, coming out of high school, you're making $28, $30 an hour, and we're talking 2003. So it was decent
Yeah.
money out of high school. I mean,
Yeah.
so right then and there, I'm like, you fall in love with money and the grind, and then you learn that being I think at a higher level company, with comes with that is you get a higher level type of individual, electrician, ownership. And just like the real estate world, right? Let's look at it that way. Like you get the Grant Cardones, the Pace Morbys. You start to, Steve Trang, where you and I thankfully met. You start to figure out that those are the cats you want to hang out with. Those are the people you start to learn the best trades from and tactics.
hmm
So being in that premier company, it taught me one thing, and it taught me how to hustle. And that's something that I'm not seeing these days with a lot of people. Some people figure out how to do it with their mind, and they can delegate. And I think I told you I admire that about you. You're great at seeing bigger pictures and delegating. And one of the things I like to do is just grind it out. It's
hmm
not the best, but it gets you to the destination, and you start to then back it up and to follow people just like yourself. So stuck with that company, got in there, and then next thing you know, you start to realize, all right, let's make some more money. Let's start a company. So I ended up
hmm
starting my own business with my best friend at the time, and then we said, let's keep it going. Anyone who's starting to make really great livings own real estate. And I
Hmm.
can bring it back to one or two people. It was a girl that I was seeing at the time. Her father owned a strip. Actually, he owned the whole neighborhood of townhomes. And it's in a
Okay.
pretty nice area in Massachusetts. And they were really well off. And I said, wow, that's what you got to do. And I remember that day. I actually went to the house to fix something with the electrical. And since then, I just said, all right, let's flip some houses. Let's get into it that way. It's the easiest. We know construction. So good. Let's go get a loan. We have W-2
Yep.
jobs and flip a house, make $60,000. You think you're going to be Rockefeller. And that's not the case. And I fast forward a little bit, but yeah, so 2013, we ended up acquiring, it was a foreclosure. So we're talking, post the 08, 09.
Yep.
There, I'm starting to keep my eyes open. I'm listening, but I'm not, I mean, the level of knowledge isn't compared to what we have now. But you're starting to see, all right, there was this big recession. Housing market was hit.
Hmm.
Foreclosures are plentiful. And
Yeah.
let's just go. And I think you're starting to see the rise, and you're starting to see stabilization. So we went for it, and we picked up a 2-bed, 1-bath um, near a little lake region in southern New Hampshire, actually. And that was a learning experience.
So when you say it's a learning experience, what happened on that deal that made it a learning experience?
There was a lot, and it was great. And I think everyone said it. We didn't lose money, but
Good.
we did a lot of things. We did everything ourselves for the most part. Um, Now you're talking a business partner of mine, a best friend, all in one package, right? So we're doing everything together. We own 2 businesses together. We're doing the renovations. We're together night and day. Um, and we just executed everything. Um,
Hmm.
and you know what? To see, like, there's only so much equity in a deal, and there's so much value you can, obviously add to a property. So um, the timing was bad. We ended up going because we're in New England, right? So at the time, we're doing things countrywide now, but at the time, yes, we went into one of the most miserable winters you can ever imagine, actually, to the point where
Sure.
I think we were getting like 2 or 3 feet of snow every week or so that one year, and we couldn't even show the property. We literally shut it down. So
Wow.
timing was an issue. We went into the winter, which I'll never do again,
Yep.
and um, we shut it down and then started it back up. I think maybe February or March, and we sold it to a VA first time. We probably made $20,000. We probably should have made 80,
Wow.
60 or 80. So
Yeah.
I would say it was an even draw. Let's just put it that
Yeah.
way.
What do you think were the mistakes that, besides obviously putting on the market in the winter, which you said you'll never do again, what else cost you that 40 to 60 grand that you think you should have made if you knew, what you were doing at the time, if it wasn't your first flip?
Yeah, doing a lot of the things yourself. So timing, so it pushed the time. I mean, we were
Hmm.
framing, took the floors out. Put new stringers in. So if anyone's listening, we put new floor joists in. So the things that hold your floor up.
Wow.
We went in the basement. We stabilized the basement. We did everything. I spray foamed the crawl space. So over improving, making sure that it was actually a home that if I had to live in it, I would have lived in it.
Hmm.
Um, just things like that, like going too far.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, so it did not require that level. Um, but the one thing I do, attribute that it was a saving grace was buying the location, paying attention to a location. So it was in like a little lake community. So
Yeah.
that is a much more desirable model to resell than maybe something that's out in the outskirts of town or in a bad part of town. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you hear a lot of guys say that. A lot of guys I know who flip a lot, they say, this is not your home. Like, don't worry about making it to the level that you want. Make it to the level of what people expect in this area,
Yeah,
this area.
that demographic, that that your price range, the neighborhood, right? They
Hmm.
say you really don't want to be the best house in the neighborhood, you know.
Right.
So yeah,
Gotcha. So 2013, you get your
yeah.
first flip done. You still make some money, which is more than a lot of people have to say on their first one. But you put a lot of work into it. What happened next at that point?
So we just keep grinding. I think. Well, actually, let me rewind. My partner, I think we put our tail between our legs. We
Yep.
still had electrical business running. So we, still dedicating the electrical business. We morphed heavy into the electrical business, being now in downtown Boston. We're running our own work. And then I took it upon myself to say, like, I'm not going to be defeated in this real estate game. I love real estate. Anyone who's going to know
Yeah.
me, I talk about it night and day. My wife, my beautiful wife, that poor woman, what she endures for what I put her through real estate. She deserves an Oscar, and I owe her everything in life. But I just said I can't. I'm not going to put it down. And
Yeah.
I asked him. I said, John, I was on a job. I said, John, do you want to do one more? I have a target. And
Yeah.
he's like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. I heard, and this is where I'll never. Don't listen to people. He was hearing information on his end that was giving him, and we're talking, a year later,
Yeah.
that he's hearing market's going to crash. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like,
In
nope.
2014?
Okay. Yeah, 14. Yeah, at
Yeah.
14, somewhere in that ballpark, right? And so I went down the road by myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quit. And we did. I was going to auction properties at that time, and the first one was a foreclosure. We did buy it. It was not. It was on Hubzu actually, which
Yeah.
not. And I ended up then just learning the craft of going to foreclosure auctions. So
Hmm.
going right to the property, right on the front lawn. And I actually, the house that I'm standing in right now, that's how we bought this. But I ended up buying it and said, let's do it. So I bought it
Yeah.
right next door. It was actually down the street from my in-laws.
Hmm.
And again, on a lake community. So that was pretty cool. And a lot of things work in twos in my life. And I'll get to that later. But another foreclosure, bought it. I just toured the exterior, knowing the building trades. Nothing's really, if the house is standing and it was built in a certain era, you really
Yeah.
understand there's only so much that can go wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Yeah.
so, yeah, we ended up, my wife was included to some degree in that. Of course, she's included in everything, but alone. And then just figured out how do we backfill, alleviate some of the construction, right? So you can't do everything.
Yeah.
So get the vinyl siding, get the roof done. You by
Yep.
yourself. So now pick a few things that you can do and run with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we I turned it around during the whole summer. I took a summer, turned it around pretty well. 3 bed, 1.5 bath,
Hmm.
overlooking some water, a little lake. And yeah, we put it back on. I think this time that year, and it sold to an ex Boston Bruin. And at the time, I think we got
Wow.
50 or 60,000 over asking because our realtor said, he said, don't have the open house. And my realtor said, you better make it juicy. And yeah, and he was coming from, and I can get into these stories, but he was coming from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where you can have a postage stamp that's on fire and you're going to get $1 million. So he
Sure.
was, he was liquidating, and he was saying he was coming up here to retire. And this was in
Hmm.
Massachusetts on a border town. And, he was buying something for $350,000. So he's downgrading, but upgrading. So he
Yeah.
had that money to spend. And yeah, I did pretty well on that one. And we didn't even go to open house. And from there, it was more of a validation to like, I told you so. And I know
Yeah.
that's not the mindset now to have. You don't want to be spiteful. You don't want to say, I told you so to anybody. But there's a lot of I told you so's.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, of course. Um, so you do that once. That's 2014. Was that the only one you did that year, or you decided to do more that year?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still running. And so, at that time, right, I am in a relationship with my best friend and a business partner. I'm still hustling for him too. Like we're doing stuff on the side together as well. So um, there was some harsher feelings. I think we weren't as close at that point. Um, and just because I think it was like, we were doing things together, and I understand that. And no, so like that's what I thought at that time. I'm like, if I can have this career, build this electrical business, do one or two flips a year, eventually get into the rental business and the
Yep.
landlord, I'm gonna be great. I
Yeah.
think that was my ticket.
Yeah.
And but as you know, we start to develop, we self-develop, we get the mind right, start
Yeah.
reading the book, start listening to all the podcasts and all that, and you start to realize, bro, there's a huge world out there.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, so it wasn't much more than that, and then subsequently it was just one at a time until about 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago,
Okay.
4 years ago, we I started buying the auction properties, but I was going to multifamily, so two families,
Okay.
and that was the
And,
key.
and you said how the auctions work where you're from. Did I hear you say earlier that the auction is held at the property itself?
Yeah, Mike, I love that you asked that. So it's not the county courthouse steps.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they're in the front lawn, and I can tell you some stories about those ones because you're showing up to a property. They know, they don't know. There's tenants in there who don't know. They're pissed off. It's vacant. There's squatters. I mean, you name it. We've seen it.
So they hold the auction on the front lawn?
Bro, I bought this house in the property on my driveway. Right on the lawn, right on the driveway. There was about 30 of us in a big circle bidding on this house. Um, Auctioneer shows up, lenders show up. You start to see all the pickup trucks and all the cars, showing up. You'll know where an auction is. And
Yeah.
sure enough, they might throw a sign out, and that's it. And like, regardless of who's inside, regardless of what's going down, that baby's going down. Someone's buying it, or the bank's buying it back.
Do you get access to the inside of the property?
No, and
Or
you
is
know
it
what?
like a
So
normal auction where you don't?
yeah, there's a lockbox on these occasionally. I wasn't ever privy to getting that information. Maybe on another episode, we can talk about how I got into this house and how I had to get into my personal house because I'm raising my family in here. And I had to be like, this was a place I needed to get into. But 9 out of 10 times, there'd be a lockbox in the door. I would see one or two guys go over to it, know the code, go in,
Wow.
and for the rest of us, we would just be the sad suckers on the outside, just waiting, peering in the windows,
Yep.
looking in. Um,
So
but
should we wait to talk about that till the statute of limitations is passed? Is that why we
oh,
need to wait for another show or?
yeah, no, I mean, bro, I'll just say this: I took one of the lock boxes that was on the front door,
Yep.
and I bought an identical lockbox on Amazon, and I YouTube how to pick that lock because I didn't want to break it. But
Yep.
if I had the code, I would be able to justify my being in that property.
Yep.
But if I broke something in my twisted mind, I wasn't breaking and entering, right?
Yeah.
I'm touring a property. So and when it comes down to it, it's like, get out of my way. I don't really care like how to get stuff done. Get out of the way. And
Yeah.
we're not going to be illegal doing things illegally, but I'm going to buy this for my family. My wife is pregnant.
Yep.
I'm, you know, let's do it.
Yeah.
So
That's super interesting that that's the way they do the auctions there. I can't even
yeah,
imagine.
I've been to a place again, a lake property. It's just coincidence that there was a tenant inside. She was inside. She had her family. John and I, my partner at that time, we were going to buy this for a rental, a short-term rental. And we're talking again, 2018, 17, 18 maybe.
Yeah.
And the woman comes out, and I used to be really into this. I used to creep by the house. I used to do all the research. I used to try to door knock, see if I can get a hold of the people, see if they're
Sure.
going to stay, who they are, because you don't want to inherit, a tenant. Then you got to do an eviction, and some laws in Massachusetts at that time were not favorable, and they're still not. So you want to do all your due diligence, right? And you don't have the bankroll to make those little errors that now I
Yeah.
might be a little brazen to do. And the woman comes out and she has zero idea what's going on. She's been paying rent. The guy's been taking
Oh,
it, and he lives in South Carolina, and he got foreclosed on. Now that I feel bad for.
yeah. Yeah, that's tough.
She didn't
Is
know.
it?
She goes, "Do I have to leave?" Sorry to interrupt you. She goes, "Do I have to leave right now? Do we have to pack up right now?" I'm like, I actually educated her. And
Yeah.
that was the next thing to go, no, 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 no. Go back in, go back inside. They're going to do an auction. It's going to sell, potentially sell. And you'll end up meeting the new owners. You'll end up getting some paperwork. I'm sure you will have to. So just take that, but go inside. Don't worry about it for now. Just
Yeah.
sit tight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that still how it's done today in
Oh, yeah.
Massachusetts?
Oh, yeah.
Meaning at the house, at the property.
Meeting right at the property. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Crazy.
Right now, I think Massachusetts, New Hampshire, you go right up, right on the front lawn, right outside, whatever. Yeah.
So you were going to a lot of these foreclosure auctions to buy your flips and your small multifamily rentals. Is that a strategy that you still continue to use today?
No, well, COVID ruined it. COVID is a blessing for a lot of us, right? If you can find the silver lining in things. We ended up, it came through. I bought, the last two family we bought was January 6th, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday. And then I think in March we ended up having the shutdown, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, when the shutdown happened, there was no auctions. We're still working. I'm again, no stopping. So how
Yeah.
do we acquire properties? And that was the only avenue I knew. Yeah, MLS is cool, but I'm about discounts. I just didn't want to
Yeah.
underwrite. I have a relationship with an agent who is a dear friend of mine and an awesome individual. But again, that wasn't my style. I'm not going to sit there and just repetitively do offers. And
Yeah.
so I literally said to my partner, I go, we got to find our own way of getting deals. Did not know what wholesaling was. Did not know really anything other than just I know about foreclosures. I know about tax liens. I know about all those things. So
Sure.
how do we just go and do it? It's really I
So
just
were,
work back.
were you still in the electrical business at this point? Early 2020? Full time.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
Sold my stake in that business 2020.
In 2020. So who's this? Is this a different partner that you were working with on the
Uh,
flips at this point, or?
nope, nope. Him and I, childhood best friends, just did everything together. We started businesses, electrical, everything together. First jobs. Yeah, we ended up separating our businesses
Mhm.
about a year or so ago, year and a half ago. Um,
Okay.
I wish him all the best. Love the kid still to death. Um, but we just, yeah, I don't know, differences, I guess. So he ended up
Sure.
sticking with the electrical. I sold my stake in that, and then I went real estate full time.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess what made you take that jump? I mean, it's 2020, COVID's going on, the world's upside down. I mean, that of any time is, I mean, everyone says COVID was the accelerator of everything, right? But for you, what made you decide to make that jump then?
The proof of concept, proof that you have to trust yourself, you have to be confident, and you have to have a support group. I think, like my wife, I'll still talk about it to this day. Every comment I can, I want to promote her. My partner at the time, the guys we had working for us, the carpenters. I mean, we had a decent, well-oiled machine, and so you build confidence, and you say, listen, this is great. You start wholesaling these little deals. So I started that, I guess, a wholesale business now in COVID because
Yeah.
all we said was, and sorry if I'm going to backpedal a little bit. We said, let's find deals. And I am ruined. You will never find me in a W-2 job now. I went to work and I was just, you know, I had a great job. We had a great thing going, but I was ruined.
Yeah.
No going back. Now we're going to wholesale the markets. Now you're starting to watch the market. You're looking at the economy. You're looking at the
Yeah.
price of homes, the margins that are going up. I go, now is the time. I don't think this is this. Well, we know it's not going to last forever. We're seeing that now. And I said, really, you got to do something now, Justin. You got to get this together
Yep.
and launch because you need to double down, get the foundation, and you got to race that clock. And I race
Yeah.
the clock every day.
Yep. So you decide to make that jump into real estate full time. This wholesaling thing is new to you. What are you doing? You were going off those foreclosure auctions for years and years and years. Now those have stopped because of the COVID moratoriums. What's the first thing you do to get a deal?
Start. I went to what is that old school? People still use it. It's antiquated lists. You get the lists.
List
It's not
source?
list source. List source. Went on there. I didn't even know what I was looking at.
Yep.
I bought the craziest list. But honestly, and then I went night and day and just hand wrote. I still love writing. Bought a pack of gel pens, bought some cardstock, bought some envelopes, bought some stamps, and I wrote until for the first time in my life I emptied a pen. My wife and I have that joke. I emptied a pen and I sent her a screenshot. I'm like, for the first time in my life, I used a pen fully, and I would just write and write and write and write. And again,
Yeah.
I will do things. I don't find the path of the least resistance. I will just mow my way through it.
Yeah.
You know, so I just wrote letters and licked envelopes, licked stamps, and we got a deal. It was $12,000. And again, in my life, a lot of magical things I think happen because it's right place, right time. It's manifesting. It's putting that energy into it. I think. But I
Yeah.
ended up the first deal I sold to the gentleman I sold it to is now my fix and flip partner. Current business,
Mm.
current. We ended up gravitating towards each other through a roundabout way. It took some time to get there, but first deal, 12 grand he paid me. Now he's my fix and flip partner. I bring the deals to him. He knocks them
Yep.
down.
Yep.
Um, Pretty cool to say that. Um,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then it morphed into we talked about licking stamps. We talked about, handwriting. And then you start to realize they step back and then
Yeah.
start to have this love affair with marketing. And how do
Yeah.
you attract buyers? What's the psychology? I know this is something that your game of locking up sellers and doing the whole seller presentation and the calls, the Sandler submarine. I know that I admire that about you, and I do talk about you so often on how like you took that Sandler submarine and Steve Trang, our training, and you took it to you took that with 100%.
Yeah.
So similar to that is the marketing. And
Yeah.
what attracts sellers? I like that fishing. I always love fishing
Hmm.
real fish in the water.
Yeah.
Um, I go, what is it that what are people doing? So you start to go down that road.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a cold caller guy. I'm not going to train them yet. I don't know that business yet, but I think this mailing thing is something I can get into.
Yeah.
So I went down the direct mail marketing, and that's another chapter. That's another conversation. But and then we went from there. Direct mail.
Yeah. And at this time, you're still in your local market, or have you started kind of expanding out to more of the East Coast like you do now?
No, no. I mean, we're strictly New England only at that time. I couldn't imagine how people were doing it. Granted, I didn't have any training, right? So zero training on any real
Yeah.
estate at all, I think. I did go for I did take realtor classes, but I never ever went for the license. And but I ended up, yeah, just going for it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So you go down, that route, you're doing the direct mail. What was that shift for when you decided you really can't, started specializing in bankruptcy properties, you started kind of doing a lot more sub two deals. Like when did that shift come and why did it come?
Mike, and I was just so rude and I didn't answer the last question too. But to go back to that, I was so fearful, but it's sub two that got me nationwide. So that answers your
Yep.
question on how,
Oh,
like, I'm local. And then I looked
yep.
at the local market. And I'm like, yeah, there's enough for everybody to eat, but I like to eat a lot more. And I don't want deals just up here. I want to own properties. I want beach houses. I want my kids to have beach houses, mountain houses, desert houses. My wife won't like that one. Um, I want places everywhere. Sub
Yeah.
two brought that community that I'm a part of. Like,
Yeah.
whew, best thing ever. So that's the reason why now I am East Coast countrywide, and I have that ability because I have a community behind me. Um, but now then morphing into you, as you mentioned, the bankruptcies, which is a big part of my, actually, I think like my avatar or my name inside Sub Two is I ended up being coined the bankruptcy guy now, which I did not really. It still says it's weird to even say that, but the book of business I ended up diving into is bankruptcies. Granted, I
Mm.
still do the crappy houses. I do the driving for dollars. We do tax liens. We do all sorts of stuff. I'll pull senior lists. Seniors were like the best thing last year. Um,
Huh.
Everyone's moving to your state up here.
Yeah,
All the
that's true.
all the snowbirds go move to you. Literally, there's about five of my deals were snowbirds. Um, but stemming back to like full circle, my house was part of a bankruptcy. It
Hmm.
was he was an electrical engineer, took out way too much debt, started inventions. He put a pool in my basement. He put an above ground pool in my basement to do experiments. All the neighbors like, you still got the pool? You still got the pool? I'm like, no, but he
Oh,
was took out a bunch of equity to do underwater GPS. I think for like your wrists. Smart guy.
okay.
Um, but he went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And again, going back to buying a lock and picking a lock and doing whatever it takes to get the inside knowledge and doing whatever I can do for a competitive advantage, I ended up diving into bankruptcies and going, all right, so he's in bankruptcy. This thing's going on and off the auction block, on and off. Why?
Mm.
Why is it happening? I don't know. So I start to dig into it and read and research and read and try to get in records. I mean, yeah, I got his whole bankruptcy documents in. I saw what was going on. I put it all together and I go, aha, he's not through his bankruptcy yet. They keep asking to put it on the auction block, but they have to
Uh,
keep doing it because he's not out of bankruptcy yet.
right.
Again, you don't know until you learn, until you do some of that work. So that's how I ended up in the bankruptcy game. And it's
Yeah.
not an easy one. For that case in point, when you're in bankruptcy, it's a timeout. It's a place where the creditors stop calling because they're not allowed to call. Um,
Mm.
you
Okay.
get to you get to keep your feet up on the lazy chair, right? You get to relax for a moment. And I think the psychology of our sellers and our people and our clients that we deal with, they get a sigh of relief. So it's there's no real urgency at that moment. There could be eventually, but that's why it's not really like the taste, like the biggest lead gen maybe, or the biggest, sexiest, attractive source for people, is because it's
Yeah.
one of the harder paths. Again, stems back to I like to travel the path of not least resistance always. I like to go down the path that I saw a few people run through. But if
Yeah.
everyone's going one way, bro, I'm going the
Yeah.
other way. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm a leader, not a follower.
Yeah.
But that can bite you in the butt once in a while.
Sure. Yeah. So, so what makes a bankruptcy deal particularly difficult compared to any other deal that you would do?
So, I mean, well, just case in point, right? Let's talk about Janet, who calls you and says like, "Hey, my husband passed away last year. I'm done. I can't take care of the house. My kids have moved out. They have their own families. I'm out of here. You know what? How quick can you give me a cash offer?" We've all
Yep.
done that, right? Anyone in
Yep.
this game has done that. But now you have Janet. Let's flip the script. Janet now filed for bankruptcy because she hasn't
Yep.
paid her mortgage. And God, I've heard the stories I get and deals I've had. I've had one 2015. Let's just say she's 2015. It's 2021. She hasn't paid her
Yeah.
mortgage. She's
Yeah.
$150,000 in arrears.
Yeah.
She has the bank is finally coming to take this asset back, and she files Chapter 13, and she
Yep.
staves it. She kicks, as I say, she kicked the can down the road for a little while.
Yeah.
Yes, you can go into a payment plan, but it's really just a shell, a hollow shell bankruptcy. And so
Can you
now,
explain that? Because I know there are different types of bankruptcy, and I don't think I'm not really even that familiar with the different types.
sure, and I'm still learning so much as well. So there's really the 2 to 3 biggest ones. A Chapter 7, which is
Yep.
really just there's no payment plans. You're under, I think, like $249,000, and there's some requirements that you have to hit, right? Some thresholds.
Yep.
You have to maybe meet the means program, which is like affordability and almost like a welfare. Um, but that's like maybe some credit cards. You were a bad boy at Macy's or wherever, and you're asking for forgiveness, and that's going to be wiped away, most
Okay.
of it, all of it, some of it. Chapter 11 is more for business, so maybe like the likes of the Trumps or those corporations that you hear that, oh, they filed for bankruptcy. You might see them do a Chapter 11,
Okay.
and that's a lot harder to deal with. That's for businesses that um, are trying to stay in business. But then you have the
Hmm.
13. Well, 13 is that's when you come into there's some prerequisites for that as well, but it might be, you know, up to a certain amount of threshold or equity that you have, and secured debt and non-secured debt, meaning, student loans, I think, are a non-secured debt. You can pretty
Yep.
much have those and just have them for life, I think, if you just chose to.
Yeah.
Secured debt, houses, vehicles, they'll come and pound those, things like that.
Hmm.
Um, So there's a threshold for that. So that's when you file Chapter 13, and that is also a repayment plan like 11. And
Yep.
you're just asking the bankruptcy courts to, you're going to list all the people you owe money to,
Hmm.
and you're asking a trustee. So you have, a judge, and then you have a trustee, again,
Yep.
appointed by the state. And what they'll do is they'll come up with a payment plan. They'll talk to the creditors, and you will condense it down just to say that you come up with a payment plan.
Hmm.
Um, and then you can stay in that payment plan. And I call it like you're in the club now.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the folks that I deal with, they get kicked out of the club. And that's, again, another little term that I say when I talk to my partners and I talk to people. It's like, yeah, they were a bad boy. They got kicked out of the club. They're
Mm.
asked, we just went on a seller appointment last night. She had the meeting on Wednesday. She missed a few bankruptcy payments. They structured everything.
Yeah.
And she missed 4 or 5 payments. They kicked her out. She is now back on her own, and the creditors can come after her again. Because creditors are
Yeah.
not talking to you. That's a timeout.
Yeah. So, of the two types of bankruptcies that apply to um, individuals, 7 and 13, are you only targeting prospects that are in the 13, or you're targeting Chapter 7 as well, or?
We go after we're marketing to everybody. Um,
Okay.
yeah, we market everybody. So we're really just putting, we're there to help. So most folks, right, they're doing the right thing. They
Yep.
recognize an issue. I mean, because let's talk about it really quickly. Let's talk about the folks that don't do this,
Yep.
right? They put their head in the sand. They get foreclosed on. You're like, how did you do that? Why wouldn't you just sell that house?
Yep.
Well, if we put our brains into everybody else's brain, into our seller's brain, we wouldn't be here. So
Sure.
we don't know that. And there's all sorts of issues. But I have to say, like, some of the times is respectable. It's respectable. A lot of people I know have filed bankruptcy. Um, and they're just series of incidents. So
Yeah.
I don't hear from a lot of people, right? Because there's a lot of those people who truly need that help. But the
Yeah.
ones we do typically hear from are mainly the ones that are pre-foreclosing. They're the ones who did this shell, and I call it the shell. And think
Okay.
of it a hollow shell, I don't know, turtle shell, whatever. It's a shell bankruptcy. It's just to kick the can down the road. It's to buy them
Sure.
time to them maybe either put their head back in the sand, which they often do, until the auction date is there again, and then they're really out of choices, or they finally are submitting to failure or to the fact that they're going to lose their house. That I either need Mike's help with a cash offer, I need Justin's help or the likes of on a creative offer or a cash offer, or maybe there's an end buyer that I can find,
Yeah.
cash or whatever. That's really, I hear from, a small percentage, and we help them.
So do you typically, so you're sending direct mail to these people mostly? Is that your pretty much your form of marketing there?
Yeah, no, we're direct mail, SMS, and some calling.
Some calling.
So
Okay.
yeah, and then now we're doing a lot of JVs, so a lot of
Hmm.
joint ventures for anyone who's out there. It's yeah, but predominantly it's those three.
So they are coming, typically when a lead comes to you, is it because they've fallen out of making their payments?
Yeah or no. I mean, I really haven't thought about that percentage. I had a gentleman, we just closed on Monday.
Okay.
His name is Jeff, and he's in Tennessee, and he's a really sweet man, really, really sweet man. And he was in bankruptcy. He recognized he had a problem. He actually did a loan modification before. He was
Okay.
having some issues, some marital issues, and he's been doing everything that he's supposed to be doing that is available to him because we live
Yeah.
in the greatest country in the world. And he's taking these steps to prevent a foreclosure. But
Hmm.
he ended up filing bankruptcy. It ends up coming through our system. And he called and reached out. He's like, I think I want to sell. I'm still in bankruptcy, but I
Okay.
think I want to sell. So I said, okay, Jeff, like so I just get to know him, right? We got to know each other for a few months. And I said, well, listen, we'll help you out. We can go into contract. We can do anything. But we can't do anything until that bankruptcy is either the trustee who oversees it. So think of it as like an attorney
Okay.
approves a sale if the asset is listed, or you are dismissed, or you're outside of your bankruptcy, you completed it, whatever the case may be. So
Okay.
you have to get permission. You can't just sell it when you're in bankruptcy.
So walk me through that. Like, so you're talking to him, right? Do you put a purchase and sale agreement together and then he gives it to that trustee to get it approved, or what is the next step there once he's like, yeah, I want to sell and I want to sell
Yeah,
to
so
you?
I just ask a series of questions. I just break it down, and I just tell them, hey, you know, is the asset listed? And I try to we try to talk about the bankruptcy. I try to get a little more knowledge. Again, some of these things you really just need to know so you know what direction in your timeline.
Yeah.
And I tell them, say like, listen, if you're just, here's the case. If you're just doing this to push off a foreclosure, you're not going to see the bankruptcy through, and you're gonna get out of the club. They're gonna kick you out, and then we'll just
Yeah.
buy it. We need anyone's approval. They're kicking you out. But like Jeff, you're going through this, and you're making payments, and you're ready to tackle the world. Yes, he would then, if his house was named inside that bankruptcy, he most likely has to get permission from the trustee and just say, "Hey, I'm going to sell this house. Are you okay with that?" And according to their debt and how much they owe and what's due, they might just say, "Cool, sell it."
Yeah.
Other times they might say, yeah, "No, we gotta." That might have to go to. They might look for appraisals and all that. And I don't want to get down that road.
Yeah.
A judge might get involved and say, "Well, that looks a little cheap. Let's go get an analysis or a BPO or something."
Hmm.
But most of the time they're like, "No, I'm good. I'm just going to get out of the bankruptcy. I'm just going to dismiss myself, or I'm just going to ask to get out because that's really all I was in there for was for this mortgage anyway."
Was to delay the foreclosure initially. So once they
Or
got,
and no, forgive me. So and again, because they went on their own because they were having problems with the mortgage.
yep.
So they may have not been foreclosing, but they just knew they needed to do something.
Yeah.
So they went into bankruptcy. Hey, let's restructure the payments. And then I come
Mm,
along,
okay.
and then they're like, you know what? Maybe we will sell it. Let's sell it. And at
Yeah.
that time, I can say, hey, are you going to stay in bankruptcy? Or are you actually going to sell it? And he's like, no, the house is the only thing I really cared about in the bankruptcy. Let's just get out
Right.
of it. So we just
Right.
waited for the trustee and the judge to approve his exit. They
Okay.
didn't know why. He just said, I'm done.
Yep.
And I bought it sub two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then so I mean, you're doing this all up and down East Coast and maybe even other parts of the country when people bring you JV deals. So, I mean, how are you finding all these bankruptcy people, and how are you marketing to such a wide group? Because it's got to be different in every area.
Yeah. We can get in. I always say we can get into the direct mail marketing and the
Yeah.
psychology of some of it.
Hmm.
You have to know your demographic, right? So you got to know, like, if I'm going to the south,
Hmm.
there's a certain type of piece of mailer that I might do. The Northeast, like I've even, and again, this comes into my nerdiness in marketing. You know,
Sure.
I'm not doing final notice, last warning.
Yeah.
Scare. That's not my game. Like, that's not who
Yeah.
I am. Let's.
Yeah.
I'm doing fun pieces. Let's have fun. I threw a bear in a bathtub. Like, it's the craziest shit. Who cares? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a cute
Yeah.
photo. It's cool. So I'm not doing this. Like, I see all these like realtors doing this. I'm in your neighborhood. This, that. Please.
Yep.
New England, I'll do, like, I've had some, like, in the fall, we'll do a cool like postcard. I take an old like 50s postcard, legitimate postcard that everyone's seen. Welcome to New England. You're gonna
Oh
pick that.
yeah.
You're gonna pick that up and go, who the hell sent me a postcard? And there's my ugly face on the back of it.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not. There's no scare tactics. There's no. It's fun. If you don't like it, throw it out. But if I could be of assistance to you, I'm here. We're all
Yeah.
here. Um, and so that's different markets. Yeah, so a direct mail, I mean, and then, bro, I'm scaling it. It's actually something that I think I was going to pull out of. And then I had a month where I was like, oh no, it's really working now. And I just went out, like, literally, my wife's going to kill me. She's going to end up moving me into the basement, is what she's going to end up doing. And honey, if you're listening to this, peace and love.
Too bad
She's,
he took the pool out.
I just bought a commercial, like, printer that does 30,000, like, direct mail an hour. I don't have that many going out, but I'm
Yep.
I'm trying to, like, learn that business. I'm trying to learn. And a good friend of mine who I met in sub two, he's in Dallas, Texas. His name is Josh Duke, and Josh is killing it in the real estate game. And he looked at me when I saw him and I had some mail pieces. He looks at me, he's like, "Bro, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this for a business too?" And I keep thinking about that as well. And like, going, this marketing and this direct mail. I don't know that business. I don't know if I want to get into it. But he's like,
Yeah.
you, whatever you're doing things that no one is doing as far as just the marketing and the catering to different demographics in different areas
Yeah.
and retro, and kind of like, if you're going to go senior owners, the best mail piece I had, I'm going to give it away right now, which doesn't really matter. It was a rotary telephone. I got comments up the ass on
Right.
rotary
Yeah.
telephone. And actually, it was a bankruptcy deal. So January we closed, or a friend of mine closed on it. It was a $50,000 deal. And the seller said, "Hey, I was in the marketing business for a long time. This is the reason why I called you. I love this piece."
Wow.
And I'm, damn, nice, yes, finally got it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so little things like that. Again, it's not a shiny object. It does deter me from having a focus. And if there's one thing I want to say to people, it's like, stick with something, do it. And I know a lot of people are having great success with just like cold calling, direct mail,
Yeah.
Facebook, what, clicks and SEO. I just happen to like going fishing and literally testing myself and creativeness. I like to be creative.
Yeah.
So
So, um, you've also done some really interesting deals that you and I have talked about with creative finance. So could you share, it could be the one we talked about the other day or another recent example of you think of one that's super interesting and it wouldn't have worked, right, for a cash offer, but doing it this way, you were able to make the deal happen.
Well, we got death, we have prison, we have bankruptcies, we have foreclosures, we have, my goodness. Um, all right, so we talked about, I got a cool seller finance deal. Um,
Okay.
it's seller finance sub two. We can get into another one too if later on if we have more time if you want to. But I have a
Sure.
seller finance deal where I think what's coming down to is again I'm going to give a lot of respect to Pace Morby and like the sub two community and even Steve Trang. It's providing value and then just really listening to these
Mhm.
sellers, listening to people and what they say. Granted, we all sometimes I miss things, but
Sure.
a woman had called me and actually to save everyone from the story of the long story, my fix and flip partner was calling me on this deal and saying, "Hey, I heard about this property. I'm going to go up there right now." And I'm like half listening to him on the way to one of my birds. And I just remember him talking about a specific something of the deal. So,
Mhm.
okay, cool. A week later goes by and I get a phone call and I usually take a direct mail inbound. And it was a woman, sweet as pie, and she's like in distress, needs help. She's telling me she's dealing with somebody, and as soon as I hear that, like the red flags go up. I'm like, well, time out. We're in a small community. I don't steal deals. I don't know what you got going on. She said something in there, which I knew it triggered that comment that Dave had told me about that property. So I looked it up, and sure enough, it was that property. I asked her, like, is it this property? And were you dealing with this person? She goes, yeah. I go, no, no, no. So I need to bow out. I'm sorry. If you're not having a good deal with time with this wholesaler or this person, how about you figure that out? If you don't come to terms and he doesn't satisfy your needs, just call me. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to. I'm not doing this game. That's not what we do around here. At least that's not what I do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe 5, 6 days go by and she calls me. Justin, it's Kathy. I am good to go. I'm like, are you sure? So she assured me and she said, I said, all right, I'll come on up. So I went up and she told me the story. It's just like, she's like, I go, what did this person not do for you? And she,
Mm.
I don't think I can pay. She was talking some numbers and I'm like, I'm not at that number. I'm going to be lower than that number. And she's like, well, I know, but it is what it is. I'm like, well, I'm just trying to be honest with you. That's not where my mind is. So you should try to make that work. How
Yeah.
about going to read? Well, my husband's dying. He's in hospice, blah, 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 blah. No one has money. I got a 40-year-old virgin living in my house, which was like factual. Um, People are just sucking off of her and bleeding her dry.
Yeah.
And she has not a dime to her name. So we, I just sat down at the kitchen table with her and had a conversation. And she's like, I go, so what is it? What am I missing? What do you need? And I had a feeling I knew what was coming, but she couldn't say it. She wanted
Yeah.
to ask me for money so she can move out prior to getting money. Apparently, this was, and come to find out, this was like this issue with this other wholesaler because he said, again, hearsay, I'm going off of one side of the story, but he
Sure.
yelled and said, you're not going to get paid until we close. And she says he was very vicious or whatever she said. I'm like, that's it? How much do you need? She said 2,500. I said, how does 3,000 sound? I said, but here I am. I'm going to give you two options. This is take it, like, do whatever you want with this. I'll give you any amount of money you need within reason to move. She wants to fly her daughter up to see the father for the last time in Texas, I think. And I said, I'm at a cash offer here, and I have or if you own it outright, which you said, or I'll take over your mortgage. She's like, no, I own it outright. Or I'll give you. Why don't you just carry the paper on it? Or why don't you just let me pay you monthly? I'll give you a large down payment, and you be the bank. And she's like, how much is that offer? And it was 25,000 more reasons than the
Sure.
cash.
Yeah.
So I said, but Kathy, don't make a decision right now. I'm not doing like our sales thing. I'm not like trying to lock it up right now in the kitchen table. This is a big decision. Talk to your sister, your daughter. Talk to your sister. Don't talk to your son. He's a knucklehead. And call me back. Either way, we're here to provide value. Get your 2,500 or 3,000 that I promised you. We're gonna do cash. Or we'll do creative. And she said, I want the $25,000 more.
Sure.
So I'm like, great. Last year I bought a house the same way, seller finance in the same town in New Hampshire, and I have it as a single family rental. And I'm looking at this is a cute house, little community, single family, 3 bed, could have a finished fourth bedroom. I'm like, perfect. This just needs some cosmetics. I'll
Yeah.
turn this into a rental, and I can get into the terms. I can get into the breakdown, and maybe we can share with your audience. Maybe we can do like something in the show notes if they care to see how
Yeah.
I structured it. But I mean, I'll give the address out. Anything you guys want to hear. So yeah, I have a seller finance deal.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead, Justin. I didn't mean to
No, I
cut
was
you
going to
off.
say. I mean, we can get into the numbers. I can get into the breakdown. I don't want to hijack your show.
No, let's talk about the breakdown. Let's talk about what it looks like.
All right. So she got 25,000 more than the cash offer,
Hmm.
and I just said like we can build the equity. I mean, we can build our interest into that number. So what I ended up saying is like she goes, "Tell me what works for you." So well, here's the numbers that work for me. Um, we'll do the $3,000 down now. I'll give you 10,000 at closing, and let's do. There's about at the time there was about 210 or so thousand in equity that she
Yeah.
had. She's like, we'll just pay that off over time. So I said, but I can only afford $600 a month. She's like, that's great because you know why? And this is why creative finance is so great, guys. So it's because of Medicaid, Medicare, her husband is on hospice. He's ready to pass away. There's some pension money coming in. She can't show income right now. The
Mm,
nursing home might be taking the property. They might be kicking them out if she gets a large sum of money. So this was
yep.
a twofold approach, which I didn't even see coming. Shame on
Hmm.
me for not thinking about, and who wants to think about it, but like the mortality of her husband and the repercussions of that. Of course, I want her to have money, but she actually can't show money.
Right.
So through the grapevine, it's actually a great deal for her as well. So she's like 600 a month is great. I'm going to be getting another whatever 4,000 or 3,000 every month from him. Plus that, I'm fine. I need to get out of this house. I'm drowning. So she goes, I think there's a small tax lien in there, and I thought there might have been as well. I looked it up, but like briefly. So this is where it gets good. So we buy the house for 225. I end up signing the contract. I do my thing on the back end, open escrow. Title company calls me right away, or a couple days later. She's like, Justin, do you know there's a $41,000 tax lien on this property? I'm like,
Oof.
again, so like, I'm like, shit. I thought it was 30. And I was going to combat that. Again, I'm talking to one of my best friends, Ted Miller now, and I talk to him like schoolgirls, and we're talking about different deals every day. And he's like, I think you can do something with that, and we talk some strategies. And come to find out, I'm like, you know what? Damn it, I might have to just buy this cash and fix and flip it. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
But let me just do one more thing. I called the tax office in the city.
Hmm.
I said, talk to whoever the higher lady is. The tax, I think she goes by like, she's got like a merit badge, like Girl Scouts, and it was like some like high, super superior tax woman. It was the wildest title. So I ended up getting her on the phone. She's like, "Oh, that's weird. That's very weird. I can't help you. You're gonna have to call the town attorney." So I'm like, "Damn it! I got to talk to an attorney now." All right, cool. What's his info? So go to his assistant, his paralegal, and we circumvent. Come around in a week or two later. I have to chase him down a little bit. I told the assistant or paralegal like the deal, and her head spun. She's like, "What do you want to do with a tax lien? You want to take it subject to what?" The guy picks up the phone. Couldn't have been the nicest man in the world. He was 41 years old, a little older than me. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" I go, "Hey, I just want to get here's the property. I'm trying to help the seller." I talked to him about the deal,
Yep.
and he's like, "Oh, sure, no problem. So what do you want to do? Take it over subject to?" I'm like,
What?
$41,000 I get subject to as well. 0% financing on that, 0% financing on the
He just
house.
wants you to pay it back over what? Over.
They hadn't paid the last payment that they paid was $2,000. They were already on a payment plan, this homeowner,
Yep.
since 2015. And yeah, they made like one payment or two, made a lump payment, and they hadn't done anything since. But the guy was so nice, the attorney. He's like, listen, we don't want to be known to be taking properties from people. That's not our game. Some
Yeah.
towns, it depends. He goes, that's not who we want to be. We want to encourage people to move here, not, deter.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have been so nice and welcoming. I rave over him, and I gave him a raving email, even though it didn't mean anything. But I just wanted to give thanks that he's a human, and that
Yeah.
we can resolve these situations creatively and come to the same conclusion. So I ended up buying the property subject to a $41,000 tax lien. That the town then said, oh, it gets better. He goes, write me an email, tell me what you can afford. I'm like, okay, all right. $250 a month. That's like I don't know, 7 or 8 years. That's something I have to pay that. Like,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
I said, I'll bring 22 current. I wanted to give some good faith as well. Let me take care of 2022.
Yep.
Everything in the arrears. Let's put on a payment plan. 250 a month. $41,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now one question I've always had, I mean, and obviously this was a seller finance deal, not a subject to deal. Um, you take over someone's payments or you become responsible for them subject to, but the mortgage is still in their name.
Mhm.
So how does that person, if they wanted to, able to get another mortgage to buy a house down the line? Because obviously that current mortgage would affect their debt to income ratio.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a common question. I got it. We just did a house in Naples. I get a lot of people saying like they're in bankruptcy and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go buy a house. I'm selling this and buying another house. I'm like, no, you're not. So stop
No,
lying.
right.
So
Yeah.
but in a couple years, in 7 years, 5 years, whatever, they build their credit back up, and sub two builds the credit back up. It's a
Yep.
performing note in the eyes of the credit bureau.
Yep.
You use an RMLO, so a residential mortgage lending officer, I think is what the term is. Um, if you set up when you sub two or even seller finance, right? You can do anything, but you use a servicing company. A servicing company is essentially just a bill pay company. So let's just say you want to pay your truck payment, your mortgage, your insurance.
Yep.
You can say to the servicing company, take X amount of dollars every month, pay these people that amount, X amount, and it's a servicing company. You pay a fee.
Yep.
So there's a little, I don't know if it's a golden rule, but there's an allowance now that as long as you're using a servicing company, a third party servicing company that's going to track the payments and track the histories, just
Yep.
like if you want to go on and check your Wells Fargo mortgage and say, like, all right, I paid my mortgage these dates. The same
Yep.
thing with a servicing company. We took payments, paid the seller on those dates, same ledger. You can just say, here, let me go get this document, and we can give it to that car salesman or that credit union, whoever you're getting that loan through, and it's going to indicate that you are no longer you're not the principal party paying that debt. The debt is
Hmm.
still in your name, but you're not the party who's responsible for that debt.
Right. So
So
you, so the way it works is you pay the servicing company and the servicing company pays the seller's mortgage and then they track that
you
along
can
the way.
track it. Yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. So
And then,
servicing companies are great.
and then what do they charge you to do that? Servicing company.
I think it's like anywhere from it used to be cheaper, anywhere from $20 to $50 a month.
Yep.
I think it depends on the company. It depends on how many transactions they're paying, how many people maybe in one deal they're paying.
Yeah.
But I have a friend who just set it up. I think he's paying, him and his partner. They did a wrap deal, so they're, for those who don't know what a wrap is, we can get into it. But it's, him and a partner are splitting profits every month. They're getting paid every month
Mhm.
like a lender. So say they
Yep.
make $200, 100 to Ted, 100 to his partner Chi. They set
Yep.
up a servicing company. That servicing company is pulling money from an end buyer,
Yep.
pays the mortgage, pays Ted, pays Chi, and Any extra profits
Wow.
get
And
split
they're
up.
hands
So
they're hands
you're
off.
hands off. It costs a few dollars, but
Sure.
it's incorporated into your overhead or your, the mortgage.
Yeah. I like it, man. Um, so throughout this journey, like one thing you said a bunch of times is mindset. What do you do to make sure that you stay in the right mindset?
Bro, I'm working on it every day. Every day. Whether I know it or not, I'm in my own head. It's tough. And it's waking up. A lot of us do different things. So I don't do affirmations. I don't sit there and do transcendental meditation. I don't do really any of that. I like to work out um, more or less in the winter when I'm hibernating. I'll work out more, and my other workouts like working on houses and getting out on the jobs.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's first of all, you got to cut out everybody out of your life that's a piece of shit, straight up.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've all made mistakes. We've all done things in life, but you've heard this, Mike. I know you've heard this. Who are your five best friends or the five people you hang out with? That's You're essentially the average of that.
Yeah.
Same thing when it comes to bank accounts. Count your five best friends? What do they make a year? Average the number, and that's what you make.
Yeah.
So it's cutting the bullshit out, cutting the people out. If that consists of cutting family out, you cut family out. It's not a cutthroat that I don't love my family. It's just I can only take certain dosages, and I'm not talking about my children and my wife. I'm just talking about certain dosages of negativity, certain dosages of you know gossip.
Yeah.
Removing that, and it took me a long time to even learn this. But again, I can't thank enough that like the sub two mentorship gave me, and what Pace brings as a human being, and the positivity and like the mindset game, and it's things that I actually had to learn that I should have probably learned as a young kid that growing up I didn't have, that I end up learning as a man, and I'm okay with that because it's fine. But
Yeah.
you got to start like if you want to do better, extreme ownership.
Yeah.
Stop making fucking excuses. Excuse me for my language, but excuses are out the window with me now. Out the
Yeah.
window. I don't want to hear them. I just fired a kid Tuesday. Just excuse after excuse after excuse. Um, so get your mind right. Get no excuses. Extreme ownership. Um, Stop surrounding yourself. One thing is tough. It's like social hours and alcohol is one thing. It's like even having like a few drinks. I'm realizing like nope, it takes away from my productivity now. Like
Hmm.
I want to go out to dinner, but I don't want to have a beer because when I come home from dinner, I want to come back in my office and I want to crank out some work. Or I want to do some other stuff, and I'm like, it's gonna make me lazy.
Yeah.
Little things like that. Um, I have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. There's so much
Yeah.
more growth. But I think if we can follow just these few things and you look at your life and you say, stop making excuses, stop surrounding yourself, stop going to the bar rooms, stop spending stupid money, and you really want to change, it's
Yeah.
right there. It's right in front of you.
Yeah. 100%.
So,
Yeah, that's it. Extreme ownership is a big thing. That's one of our core values as a company, actually. And I will not hire people who do not have that value because it never works.
yeah, Mike, like, give me a few because I think that's something that yeah, you're a lot calmer of a person to analyze that. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
In terms of mindset,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I do. I mean, I do a lot of stuff around mindset. So every morning, if you ever read the book The Miracle Morning, I kind of follow that every morning. So he's got that acronym, which is silence. So that's like meditation. I use it. I like to think every morning for like just sit there and think for like 20 minutes when I wake up, 20, 25 minutes. Sit on my couch, drink a cup of tea or something or water and just think. Let things just race through my mind, right?
Maybe write a
There we
few
go.
things.
Maybe write a few things down,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
And then from there, I'll usually meditate for like 15 minutes. I use Headspace. Um, After that, I do journal every morning, and I have a template that I kind of use. Part of it's like lessons learned from the day before. Kind of one thing I took from Sandler was like, rating your. You set a daily goal, right? What's your daily behavior goal for today? What's your daily attitude goal to support that behavior? So behavior goal, maybe I'm going to make 20 calls, right? Attitude goal, maybe I'm going to have the mindset that making calls will get me deals, for example, right? And so
Yeah.
I rate myself on both of those the day before, and then I write some lessons learned around that or around anything from the day before. And the crazy thing that I realize is you'll start to write down the same lessons learned a few days in a row, and then you'll start to be like, why do I keep doing this? This is dumb. It takes a couple days. Sometimes it
Yeah.
takes a week. And if you're constantly improving, so that's what I do. And I mean, I won't go into the whole thing. It's a long thing, the whole miracle morning routine. There's affirmations in there. There's visualization, exercise. So I take a run on the beach every
Yep.
morning because I live about a block from the beach. Just clears my head.
So jealous.
Uh,
So
yeah, that's Florida, man. You can move here.
you got a house there.
um, and then it's it's just constantly working on it. It's like it's reading books.
Yeah.
Uh, surrounding yourself with the right people. We just started doing something in our company called, we started doing two things actually. One of them is we have a Slack channel called Attitude of Gratitude. And I got this from my friend Obi Dorsey in Jacksonville. So what everyone does is every morning they post something that they're personally grateful for, something they're professionally grateful for. So that's something that kind of lifts someone else up on the team. And then something that like a recent success or character trait that they're grateful for. It's really cool because like you see whoever else team, you learn more about your team. Um, so that's something that we do. But just constantly keeping it in mind, right? And just taking small steps every day to improve your mindset. And I think there's common saying, right? It's like people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. Right? It's like if you take those tiny little steps every day and you got to break it down to what are your goals, but what are the daily behaviors that get you to that goal that's 5, 10 years down the road?
Yes. Yeah.
Do those, yeah.
That's awesome, Mike. And I just got a takeaway, and I want to thank you for that. Like, we have a Slack channel. We're brand new on Slack. We were doing WhatsApp. We're doing certain things. We had a Slack channel we never used, and then we just went on it. The team's growing, but I love that. I love that we can do that channel, and we can throw some affirmations in there. We can just talk. Just it's team building. It's those are
Yeah,
the little takeaways that you sometimes forget. You know they're there, but you just brought that into me. So thank you for that, because
yeah,
that's a reality check for me. It's like think about your team for a second again. Put that Slack channel in. So thank you.
yeah. Yeah, it's an
It's awesome.
easy thing. Like Obi mentioned it on this podcast 3 weeks ago, and we just put it in like the next week. And it's awesome. And
Yeah,
everyone learns stuff from each other.
cool. So good.
Um, but yeah, man. And then I mean, you and I did a lot of Steve's training together, and obviously Pace talks a lot about sales stuff too. And I'm passionate about I really dove in and made it my mission to learn that. I'm curious, like where you are on the sales perspective and what your sales process looks like.
Great. Yeah. So what I ended up taking away from a lot of that was I looked at well, first of all, I went into Steve Training, not realizing that I'm going into a sales training mentorship. I wanted a business. I told Steve that
Okay.
I want a business coach, but I didn't know. I didn't know what I needed, right? And I'm thankful for everything. These things happen in life, and I'm grateful for them. Right? It was a positive. It was a win. Um, but I take bits and pieces, and that's what I always say. I go, I take little bits and pieces of everything. This has been my whole life. I've
Yeah.
extracted things from individuals that I've maybe looked up to. Um, Maybe that I loved they were doing in this business, or they were doing, this right, or everything in life. And there's certain sayings we can get into of like, repetition, and or don't reinvent the wheel, or, you know, you
Yeah.
could take a product and just make it better.
Yeah.
Same mindset. I've kind of just organically done that. So I went in Steve's took some bits and pieces. I needed it, needed that.
Mhm.
And then I went into sub two, and I will admit, I was like, oh shit, this is my style. This
Mm.
is who I am. I needed that. But
Which part of it aligned more with you?
you know what? It aligned that that attitude in the sales training. I didn't personally love the whole Sandler submarine, like the harder or like the more rigid approach of sales. It's never been
Mm.
me. I've done any sales in my life.
Yeah.
Being like, you like my quote or you don't. Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Um, like my price, we're expensive when we're really talented. I mean, hire someone else. So that was it. That was my sales. But going into sub two and then seeing how pace and the flow and looking at how you can you're just listening and you're picking up these little things when I'm focused on this sales approach and what's the script and this and that. Personally speaking, again, other people are
Yeah.
way better at it,
Sure.
such as yourself. But you take some of the fundamentals of upfront expectations in contracts and not letting people get away with certain things, walking over you and treating you just like every other person and shopping your offer around. All that stuff still applies, but
Yeah.
when it comes down to like listening and just being yourself and genuinely caring if that person is receptive to, and then also giving and taking, but mutual connection on the phone or in front of them, just listening. Wow, that woman, case in point, someone closed her, someone did something earlier with her, gave her more money, but didn't listen to what she needed. She wanted $3,000, $2,500 to move. No
Yeah.
problem. No problem.
Yeah.
And we just did it. I just paid a mortgage. We're paying mortgages for people right now. Like, not saying don't, if anyone's listening, don't do that. Just know what you're doing. But like, we're doing whatever it takes to make the deal work. We're just cautious of the deal and we structure it. And that's getting into a different topic. But yeah, I've morphed it all, Mike. And I'm grateful for that. Steve was great. Sub two got me some things. And it's just more of a style that's freestyle, right? That's what I like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you still got those base components, right? But you're not so rigid in following it through. And I think that's what happens to anyone once you've taken a sales system, learned it, and you own it now, right? Is you don't feel the need to be so rigid. You just listen and you apply the principles, but you almost apply them without even knowing it because you've internalized them and they become part of who you are. And
Yeah.
you made it your own, right? You've taken it and made it your own style.
And like Steve would say to us, right? Steve Trang email just popped up. He goes, even his daughter does things. His daughter
Yes.
sales tactics with him, and like you start to use it in everyday life.
Yeah.
Like little, and it's almost like it's a psychology. It's a form of psychology too that you're dancing with.
Yeah.
So yeah,
100%.
but yeah, I admire what you did and like your technique on that. I just couldn't get it.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Um, I guess one thing just to stick on sales just for a little bit. Um, when you started, before you kind of learned any of the sales stuff, whether from Steve or from Pace and Sub 2 and anything, what do you think your biggest sales mistake was in the beginning when you started going direct to seller?
Easy, super easy. And it was
Yeah.
I closed that deal in Steve Trang's in the mentorship. Well, the weekend we went to Arizona together.
Oh yeah, I
It
forgot
was
about
out there. Steve looks at me. He's like, "Don't call her right now with this contract. I'm making an offer." He's like, "Get her on the phone, send her the contract while you're on the phone with her and tell her it's coming. Go in my conference room and walk her through it, and she's going to sign it while she's on the phone with you.
that.
There's
Yep.
none of this. Send it in the email and let it just hang out and in the oblivion, in the abyss." So,
Yes.
you know, I would go to a sales before all that. I would just go to a seller appointment, thinking everybody's on the same page. Hey, we're going to talk about a price. We're going to go back and forth. If it's good or it's not, we're going to let each other know. But I didn't realize, again, newbie, people are shopping them. People are calling. They're super like sellers are liars, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would go to a seller point and be like, okay, well, awesome, good seeing you. Thank you for letting me see your house. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
I'd call him like, I'd call him and like, I don't know, like maybe that night, whatever, would do a dance, and then you get ghosted. You might lock one up,
Yeah.
but they're shopping your offers, and there's no, you're out the door, you're out the window now.
Yeah. And we all know anyone can beat anyone's offer by $1,000, right?
Yeah,
In most markets, maybe not in every market, but in most markets.
yeah.
So
But now
I'll never,
creative comes in.
I'll never forget. I'll share this one story with you. This one guy, actually, it was a bankruptcy foreclosure. I mean, and everything else deal, tough deal. And I've been talking to him for 6 months, probably at this point. And I call him one day, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm assuming you're still trying to figure everything out." And he's like, "Well, I think I'm actually ready to sell the property. I just got an offer for, I don't remember the number, 130, 135, whatever it was." And I said, "Okay." And I knew that was a good price. Like I knew I could do that. The house was in rough shape, but it was probably a 60K renovation, so it was a good price. And I just said to him, I said, "Well, let's pretend I could do 135. What would happen then?" He goes, "You do 135, you send me a contract right now, I'll sign it on the spot." He signed it right then and there. I didn't even pay more than the other guy. I just didn't let him get off the phone before I signed the contract. And it's crazy, right? I mean, it's so yeah, you don't want people shopping your offer because sometimes someone's not even going to pay more than you, and you're still going to lose it
Yep,
for the same
yep.
deal. Um,
And for sure, Steve said either be first, be last, but don't go in the middle. Like if you're gonna go on an appointment, you want to be the first guy, you want to be the last guy. And it's, I just told the story that I just said that little tip to someone, I don't know, yesterday, 2 days ago.
yeah,
Same thing. But now I'm seeing it's a struggle now, right? So, well, remote. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of this remote as well now. So we're sometimes we're boots on the ground. We can get people in there, but a lot of it's a lot of phone. It's a lot of email, texting, just having organic conversations with people
yeah,
because we're remote and we're in different parts. But it's now you're just building trust. You're answering
yeah,
all the questions. You're knocking them down. Um, Being just an honest human serving, they're usually in a hard spot, and it's like this is what I can do. If you like it, great, we're here for you. Um, but it was the Wild West, Mike, and it's still in certain markets, right? A year and a half ago, a year ago, even 6 months ago, 4 months ago. But it's a little
still,
different now, you
yeah,
know, in some markets. So you were competing with so many different people and phone calls and iBuyers, and I mean, I was at an appointment and the lady was on the phone with a wholesaler. She's like, "Oh, I'm talking to the woman right now," and we had this appointment set, and like she's fielding calls,
yeah,
and that was the most urgent I've ever felt. And I actually came back to a Steve training that night. It was I think one of the Mondays, and he's like, "Nope, get her on the phone tonight and
yeah,
figure it out."
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a deal. It was an in-person appointment about a few months ago. We ended up settling that it wasn't a deal. It was a no, right? It just didn't work. The price they wanted was just too much for the condition of the property. And as I'm leaving, we're just chatting and kind of just hanging out for the last 5 minutes. And I see a text come across her phone from another guy I know in town asking about the property. And I was just like, I mean, it wasn't a deal for me anyway at that point, right? We had already settled on a no, but I was just kind of chuckling a little bit inside. At that moment, someone else was personally reaching out to her, or she had reached out to before and said, "Hey, let's talk."
Oh
I don't
God,
know if he ever did the deal. I mean, definitely wasn't a deal at the price that her and I were talking, but good for him if he ended up getting it. So,
for sure,
um,
for sure.
yeah. Well, Justin, we're almost wrapping out of time here, but I always end with two questions. The first one is, what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation you've ever experienced with the seller?
Whew. We deal with a lot of them. It's a long story, so I'll keep it short. It was a foreclosure. I bought it in front of the house. People were there. Unfortunately, there was some drugs, there was some death, there was some things surrounding that property. So it was the worst house on the street.
Yeah.
Um, and we took it over. We got them out. Go and go one day to just post some notices and stuff and lock up before I go on vacation. We were going to take my family away. And I just ran through the house, not even thinking. And all of a sudden, I'm like, there's some creaking and some steps. I can hear. It's an old house, but I hear someone here. Yeah,
Oh,
the drug addict son was back, and he was trying to squat in the house. So that
wow.
ended up pretty bad. A small chase, standoff type thing. Every cop in town was there. Um, yeah, it was pretty ugly. And the gentleman ended up passing away a short time after that from drugs. So I do feel bad, but I would say that's probably one of the craziest ones I've had
Yeah.
with cops. Yeah, some guns, some death we've had, unfortunately. But when you're buying these properties, or when I was buying more auction properties,
Sure. Yeah.
pre-COVID, um, there was a lot more of you're interacting with these people because they're still in there.
Right. Because they're holding
So.
over after. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's got to be some difficult situations. And my final question for everyone is always, if you could go back in time to 2013 before you did your first deal and give yourself one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would you say?
Whew. That's another day too. I'd love to talk about that. Let's do, well, Sub 2 has changed my life incredibly. And it's just not even that mentorship, they weren't even around then. But knowing about creative finance, I think, is a door that is dramatically untapped. Um, and that also you can't get to places alone, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. I had
Yeah.
teamwork, had the wrong teammate.
Yeah.
And I think that now that I'm seeing like I'm JVing with everybody. I'm sure you and I are going to do a deal at some point together. It's,
Definitely.
it's that mindset on the other end of that was partners are for dancing. I feel so bad that that was sort of a mindset that I was into as well.
Yeah.
So I'd go creative finance and you do more partnerships and look for more money. So I'll give you three.
Okay. Cool. Well, Justin, if people want to reach out to you, if they have a bankruptcy deal that they're working on that they need your advice on or want to JV with you on, or if they just want to reach out to you in general, how should they go about doing that?
Love it. Yeah. So anyone who has any creative finance, you get deals that you can't, um, maybe cash doesn't work. You got sellers that are losing their house soon. You don't know what to do. There's too many arrears, maybe. Um, Reach out to me. So in the show notes, I'm sure there'll be some notes, some emails and whatnot. But I'd say Instagram is great. So it's real estate Justin, real estate period. Just look up real estate Justin. I have YouTube now. There's a TikTok. There's Facebook. Direct message me. Hit me up. Introduce yourself. Tell me where you are. Tell me what you're doing. What's the scenario? Introduce yourself first. I want to know about people. I don't want to be like da 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 da. Like this is my problem. I genuinely care about what you're doing and where you're from, and maybe I know someone. Maybe we can talk about something else. But um, yeah, use me as a conduit. We're starting to help a lot of people. I'm starting a JV, and like I love meeting people. I love talking about it, as you can tell. I love talking real estate, doing deals, and actually getting people to make money as well. It's not even about getting paid all the time. It's about letting others prosper as well.
Yeah,
So let's do it.
sure, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate you coming. And guys, if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe, like, and share it with other people. We are trying to get some great, awesome guests on the show to continually provide value to the community. So, Justin, thanks for joining us today.
Mike, thank you so much. I can like watching you do this. It's just the beginning. Let's do something again. I don't want to be a pest, but I love talking to you,
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
super happy for you. So, um, everyone support Mike. Let's do it.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.